Good afternoon, everybody. This is DMGeezerjim. I'm hoping I'm streaming on Twitch Live right now. If I am, great. If not, we'll have to figure out some technical stuff later. Welcome to my stream. I'll also be recording this and putting it over to my YouTube channel. I just wanted to spend a few minutes working with Campaign Cartographer 3. Recently, it was on the Humble Bundle sale, and a couple of years ago, that's where I picked it up. Really kind of enjoyed well, I'm going to be honest. I didn't like the software when I first started. It was pretty hard. It was kind of played with it and went back to using Paint and Graph Paper and Incarnate and a couple of the other simpler programs, but they always felt like something was missing. So I dug back into CC3 and really spent some time going through the Tome of Ultimate Mapping, watching a lot of tutorial videos, and more than that, just a ton of trial and error. And I've gotten to where I can draw some really nice maps. I believe one of my sets will be featured in the Pro Fantasy Annuals this year. I've got several collections on Etsy and my Patreon as well. Just kind of slowly building it up. But I did notice that CC3, the bundle went on sale on Humble Bundle again, and I talked a couple of my friends into buying it, and they're kind of in the same spot. What do we do with this damn software? It's impossible. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just run a series of videos on how to use this stuff, and kind of hopefully save you guys some of the hard steps that I had learning the wrong way. You probably seeing now I've switched over, and this is actually a view. This is a section of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage from the appropriately named Wizards of the Coast 5th edition module. The dungeon is huge. This is just 1/3 of the dungeon. I've got it mapped out to 400 foot by 300 foot. This is actually a virtual tabletop version of the map I've prepped up, and I use this for combat. We use this when we're playing. I simply share the screen over to the party, and we move around tokens as we go. If we're fighting, I throw Fog of War on, and voila. But I digress. We're not worried about that right now. That's getting way ahead of myself. So back on task. I want to help people that might be messing around with Campaign Cartographer, not sure if they like it, or open it up for the first time. What's important to know? And honestly, the thing that makes Campaign Cartographer different than the rest, in my opinion and in my experience, is the customization ability of it. You can make any kind of draw tool that you can imagine using any kind of bitmap file that you can import, literally. I mean, that's not an exaggeration. If you can import the bitmap file, the software will help you size it up for what you're doing, and you can build a custom draw tool for fractals, for straights, for curves, for hollow objects, for shapes, whatever. That's one of the big, huge things about it. Draw tools are only limited by your imagination. Once you learn the software, you can build a draw tool for anything using whatever textures are available within the program suite itself, or importing any of the other bitmaps. That's a lot more complex, but I'm not trying to say anything other than the limit of what textures, tools, and arts that you can use to draw in this program. There is no limit. Now, commercial stuff aside, obviously you've got legal stuff to worry about. You can't be trying to publish stuff with other people's assets without permission. The plus side of Campaign Cartographer 3, if you do own it, you do have commercial use for any of the assets within it in a product. You can use it as a finished map. You can't resell assets and call them yourselves. But for example, this map is I believe pure to the art assets from the Mike Schley set, the SS4 set, 100% clean. And legally, this is mine to do what I want with it, whether it be using it or selling. So that's one of the big plus sides with Campaign Cartographer 3. You have commercial license to your works. They're your works. They don't sit on Incarnate servers. They don't, they're yours. Secondly, in addition to the what I was referring to on the bitmap texturing and all that, the objects. Campaign Cartographer 3 is a CAD-based program. I believe it's based on QuickCAD. So if you know how to use CAD software, if you're familiar with it, you might be looking at my interface going, dang, that looks like what I use at work. Well, then you're 100 steps ahead when it comes time to build a map. So good for you. The rest of us looked at that and went, holy crap, that's about 55 more buttons than I have on my paint program. I don't know what to do. You'll figure it out with time. But the drawing aspect works like anything else. You pick your tool, you pick your art, you pick your object, you draw your little shapes on it. You drop your pick your symbol catalog, drop your chairs and tables and doors where you want. Voila, it's all done. It's got great snap features, got great draw features. In my opinion, what makes it different is the depth of the sheet effects, and that's what can make your maps. And early on, will probably break your maps because you're really not used to. You're not sure how it works. And there's tons of information available online, guys. Whether you want to watch the Pro Fantasy series on tutorials, whether you want to go to their forums, or you have the Tome of Ultimate Mapping, that's going to tell you the same thing I'm sitting here telling you. I'm just trying to show you and tell you a little bit quicker, and offer my opinion that this is the important thing to figure out if you're going to use Campaign Cartographer. Everything else is affected by this. This is the sheet effects really give you the breadth and depth to do a lot more with this program than you really think about. So before we get too complex in it, let's just say, what the heck are you talking about, DM? Okay, DMGeezerjim, you've been rambling about the software. Show us something. So we're going to start very, very, very basic. Okay, I'm going to open up a new map. We're going to go ahead and use the SS4, the Dungeons of Slay style. You're going, what's that mean? Okay, so you've opened up your software. You got your banner, title, program, whatever. Those of us that are in it, the program will always open up the last project you had saved. We don't get to see the Pro Fantasy welcome banner anymore. Not a big deal. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on New. Save changes. Yes, I want to save all changes to what I'm doing. It's save, save, save. So the new drawing wizard comes up and it asks you, what do you want to draw? This menu will be dependent on the modules that you own. Castles, cities, cosmographer. If you want to build space maps, you can do that. Dungeons, overland maps, perspectives, 3D mapping. It's got 3D. There is a 3D isometric mapping module as part of the bundle. I think it was when I bought it. It might be this time. I'm not sure. If you're really good at geometry, you could probably do some really cool shit with that. If you ain't good at math, don't start. Symbols catalogs, brings all kinds of little art, temples, treasure, token treasure. We're not worried about that. We're using dungeon. So I'm going to click on dungeon. When it goes from map type, the next selection will be map style. So this is all of the nuts and bolts. Real briefly, the idea of styles is basically a collection of pre-built tools, pre-built symbol catalogs, and pre-built effects that are applied to a particular style. Okay, doesn't mean you're locked into any of it. And as a matter of fact, a lot of these you can cross your styles back and forth, and some of my best creations are an amalgamation of several styles. Not worried about that right now. Just kind of explaining what a style is. All it is a collection of drawing tools with the appropriate bitmaps, collection of symbols that have been scaled to that, they look good with that coloring, etc., etc. It's just a like set of art assets and drawing tools that have been grouped together. Okay, so we're going to go with SS4 Dungeons of Slay. I'm going to use this because, number one, I like it. It's a really attractive style. Number two, if you've played any sort of RPGs, you're going to be familiar with the art style of Mike Schley. And nice hand-drawn style. Looks really clean, but that's what you've been looking at as the background so far. So we're going to use this one. I'm going to go to next, and then it says new drawing wizard, top left, top right, bottom left. Basically, if you're going to add your map title, copyright notice, and cartage, or what is it called? Compass point, rose point. This decides where in that map it's going to be. I'm not worried about that, and you don't even have to use it for most of your products if you don't want to. I seldom do. But the dimensions are important. This is in measured feet. If I build it as it is, the map program is going to set up a map to be 1,000 feet wide by 800 feet tall. Okay, so it's going to scale into actual, because again, we're working with a CAD program, so it's set up for architectural design to measure down to those points. You don't want a map that big. I mean, the one you're looking at had been looking at its background is actually 400 foot by 300 foot, which is about a quarter of this map. So you can only imagine how big that would be. The software can do it. For your first map, don't bother. You'll spend 8 months trying to fill it up, and then it'll run like chugga woo woo, because you'll know. Let's not worry about it. We're going to make it nice and small because I'm not worried about drawing a map. I'm worried about demonstrating effects. Okay, so I'm going to go 50 foot by 50 foot for this. Okay, I'm going to hit next. It's going to ask for my background. Now, your fill style is available based on the bitmap textures that are part of that symbol set. Okay, part of the style. So all of these have been are hand-drawn textures provided by Mike Schley and set up to adapt to all the draw tools that are presented in SS4. For right now, I'm actually going to go with solid 20, a gray, just ugly black background, because we're not worried about anything but seeing what effects look like right now, okay? And so if we have a nice plain contrast, you'll actually get a view of it. Okay, so as soon as you hit next, it's going to ask you to save it wherever you want. We're going to call this Twitch test sheets v1. Now, whenever I do it, I prefer to kind of name it after whatever I'm using. So this is MS v1. Just as a reminder myself. Hit save. And okay, so you're looking at just this plain ass black or plain gray map. Early on, this is a little bit side off of the effects, but it's an important thing. Grid or no grid. That's entirely up to you as a user and as a drawer. Some people prefer to use a grid. For me, it's all situational. If I'm drawing a battle map, if I'm drawing a map that I plan on using for a combat encounter in Dungeons and Dragons or providing for someone else to use in their virtual tabletop, I use a grid. It's very important to make sure that the measurements are there and to make sure that play area is there, to make sure there's enough squares for people to move around on, enough squares that are accessible for the enemy tokens to be, and make sure you have some good unique paths. Is it photorealistic? Is it natural a lot of times? No. But at the same time, we're trying to simulate a nice environment by still allowing for gameplay options. If you draw without a grid, your stuff's going to look a lot more natural. You're not going to feel constrained. You're just going to kind of go with the flow of stuff. You can do that, superimpose a grid on it, and call it difficult terrain if you want. That's entirely up to each person. So for battle maps, specifically indoor building maps, I do use a grid. I'm a little bit more architecturally oriented as far as I got to make sure that my chimneys don't lead into the middle of the chimney downstairs doesn't lead in the middle of the bathroom upstairs. Making sure that you have enough support. You don't have a 100-foot by 100-foot wide room with no support. So it's important in some places to use grids, but it's at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. But after all that, I'm going to show you how to activate your grids. Right now, there's nothing here. So if you're up along the top of your menu, it is cut off on my screen. I'll get that fixed for next broadcast. You'll have File, Edit, View, Draw, Tools, Symbols, Dungeon, Info, Help. Okay, you can access everything that you need to draw and alter and do anything with your maps through those menus up there. You can do the same thing with all of the tools along here on the left. You can do most of that with a right click. If you know how to do any command prompts, you can use command prompts to do all of this. There's multiple ways to actually draw your stuff, actually apply your stuff, and affect your stuff, okay? So we're going to start simple, though. Okay, so we're going to go to Draw. Here about halfway down, you'll see Hex or Square Overlay. Select that with a left click. Gives you an option for grid overlays. Hexagonal, horizontal, or vertical. Do you want your flats on the sides? Do you want your flats on the tops? And then however you need it for your map. I'm going with the square grid for right now. Isometric 3D, you can put a 3D grid on a 2D map, or you can apply the 3D grid to a 3D map if you make one. Labeling is completely up to you. For a square grid, it'll put the numbers outside. The XY coordinates will be on the outside perimeter of your map. For your hexes, it'll actually give you alphanumeric labels inside your hex, like your typical old school board game, old school war game, as it were. And they can be useful. That's completely up to taste. So we're going to 5-foot square grid. We're hitting apply. Oh, I left the labels on. That's fine. Normally, I don't like labels, but... So grid is up. The next thing you're going to want to do after you draw your grid is go to your layers. Okay, your layers are simple. They're not... This is where Campaign Cartographer is a little bit different from a lot of your art programs, your drawing programs. Layers in that is stacking your effects and stacking your art upon each other. That's what we use sheet effects here for. This layers for Campaign Cartographer are organizational. Okay. Make sure that everything is in its place and allows you to freeze, allows you to hide, allows you to full select, manipulate everything on a given layer. It's a quick, easy access thing. Super important on big, complex maps. Quick, easy maps, not the end of the world. Don't, most of the time it'll be transparent to you. But you definitely want to run over here and hit this button here, freeze. Okay. While we're on this screen, I'll take a second. Whatever box is check marked is the default layer for whatever you're going to draw. Okay. So you can only have one of these selected as your active layer. Okay, let's keep that in mind. You can then hide by toggling in and out, and actually hides any of the objects that have been assigned to that layer. And then you can also freeze, which means they remain on the map, but they cannot be affected by any commands. So that's what we're going to use for hex square grid. That way it sits there no matter what I do. If I go over here and decide to click delete, the square is unaffected. If you put a grid on your map before you draw, you must freeze your grid immediately before you do anything else. Otherwise, you're going to end up deleting it, moving it around, doing silly crap like that. So from there, we've got our grid placed. Our main focus is going to be on effects today. So that's this little thing here where you see the S, drawing sheets and effects. Everything that you draw in Campaign Cartographer is considered by the software to be an object of some sort. Okay, well, just not even some sort. And I'm probably miswording this because I'm not a software guy. This is me, an old dude who plays a lot of games, who picked up this software trying to help out other guys that might be in the same position. Okay, so if you're technically proficient, feel free to jump in comments and leave stuff and let me know where I'm wrong on the terminology. And Pro Fantasy, for the record, outstanding company, small company, very responsive, very engaged team on Facebook. Sue Daniels is a wonderful artist. Ralph Shemin is one of the lead programmers and does a lot of the tutorials. Very informative guys. So I would recommend you go check out the Pro Fantasy series of tutorials as well. Plus side is you're always going to learn something new. Downside is these guys are the builders of it, the advanced users of it. So you've got to have a little bit of knowledge before you can really absorb it. But there's nothing wrong with going back and watching something after you learn something. It is what it is. So, I went off on a tangent there. I apologize. But back to sheets and effects. Everything that you draw will be added to these particular sheets. Each of these sheets will contain the objects attached to them. Each of these sheets have effects, the graphic effects attached to them. Okay? So I'm showing you the various sheets. They're listed from top to bottom. They're not by alphabetical order. They are by draw. The first thing that the program is going to lay down is the background. The next thing is whatever is considered a background hill. Next thing will be outside terrain, so on and so forth. And the final thing that is drawn is the map border. Okay? What does that mean? Stuff lays on top of each other. So if you don't have the right effects or you don't have the right orders, you can hide your own objects with what you're doing if you're not paying attention to your sheets and you don't know how to use sheets and effects. That's why this is my first tutorial. Y'all can figure out how to put a table on a map. Y'all can figure out how to draw a square, a floor, put a wall around it, put some bushes around it. That's the easy part of it. This is the part that took a long time to learn, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. Figure this part out early. And the best way to do that is to draw dumb crap, mess it up, and see what the effects do. Because everything is so customizable. Okay, so I've given you the quick lowdown on the sheet. What does all of this mean? Okay, so when I described earlier that when you pick a style, it's a predefined set of textures assigned to drawing tools, that plays into the sheet. So over here on the left side, I've got the different little stuff. If you mouse over it, give it a half a second, it'll, give you the little tooltip on what it is. Default terrain is where we're starting. So if I right click on default terrain, it brings up what is available as a terrain drawing tool in this set. I'm being very specific about that because this is the default. All of this is modifiable. All of this is customizable. You do all kinds of crazy crap. We're not worried about that right now. The default drawing tools for this particular selection, we'll go backwards again. Autosave's a good thing. We're going to right click on it. This is default terrain. Okay. All of them are named, so on and so forth. So we're going to take a dirt brown 3 curved. What does that mean? That means I'm drawing a curve on my map of dirt brown 3. Okay. So right now it looks like a piece of mud stuck on a gray thing, right? So when I clicked on that draw tool, and I'll do it again just so you can see, we'll take terrain dirt brown fractal 1. You should see up on the top right, I'll do it one more time. I'll get smarter about shit and get zoom ins. But when you do this on your home copy, you should notice the sheets and the layers may change. They're supposed to. Whatever you're defaulted on right now, I'm on floors and background floor 1 because it's checked over here. Let's just say I go ahead and move over to Game Master only. Doesn't exist as anything yet. But so it's over here defaulted to that. And let's just for fun do the same thing here. Right now, if I was to custom draw an object, it would appear on the background sheet assigned to the Game Master only layer. So I'm using a built-in draw tool. We're going to go ahead and go back over to Terrain Dirt Brown Fractal 1. As soon as I click on this, you'll see that that has switched to outside for the sheet and background for the layer. That's where the presets from the drawing styles come into. The programmer's done all the work to make sure that these things land in the right place. Very intuitive, nice and useful. Important to know how it works because, excuse me, once you get better with the software, you're going to break all that. You're going to make all your own kind of stuff. You're going to make all kinds of really cool shit. So, but you got to know how it works before you can learn how to break it, right? So the next tool I'm going to draw has already been selected. It's a fractal. You're going, that doesn't look very fractal. We'll get into more details. Up and down arrows on your keyboard will straighten or add more points into the the polygon draw line, as it were. If you ever get to where you're not sure you wanted it, hit the delete key. It takes you back 1 draw point. Okay. So, okay, we want more fractal. Okay, let's add more fractal. Remember, this is a smallish map, so that's going to be some pointy terrain, but it doesn't matter. I'm getting into acting like this map actually matters. Okay. So we've got 2 different terrain tools. Shows you how it switches from your defaulted selections to the assigned draw tool selection. So we're going to go ahead and add a couple objects. First thing I'm going to do is go to the trees. And again, anything in this draw set that's assigned to vegetation and trees will be here. You go, why is that purple? The Schley set is a nice art set, and they were very intuitive as far as allowing for transparent images. The background is still the same, so as I go through my little color wheels, you notice that those colors of one of these sets will change. Good thing. It gives you some customization, gives you some variety while keeping the art style consistent. But again, that's for completely different discussions. All I wanted was a bush and a tree. All right. Bush default. Now, scale is important here. When we set it up to 50 foot by 50 foot on our map, all the engine makes sure that the objects are rendered in the appropriate scale. So if we would have set it up at 100 foot, that would have been a tiny little bitty bush, but we're setting it up here. Oh gosh, I messed up my size. If you have the default object selected and you right click, it brings you the symbol parameters. So if you weren't sure what you did and you want it back to where it was, you hit set normal and hit more, and we're back. Okay. Nice little oopsie. So we hit a bush and I'm going to drop a tree. Okay. And just because this isn't a real map, I'm going to go ahead and draw a section of floor. What did I do? Oops, moving too quick. Just as we selected default terrain, which brought us to a preset, a set of built drawing tools for Outdoor terrain, we're going to go to the same thing, look for default floor. Right click on it. And let's just go with raw. No, that's not going to pop, same background, sorry. Let's go with a wooden floor for funds. Okay, we'll go with wood, oak, straight. Okay. Now, back to grids. Remember back when we were talking about do grids matter or do grids not? So now it's time for me to draw a floor. And a floor without a grid is going to be a crooked thing. Unless you're just super, super good or you know how to do the coordinate program. The rest of us simpletons, this is where having a grid is nice. You click on your grid, activate it. This tells you where it's going to snap. Rectangular will just sit to the points of your grid, 5 foot by 5 foot. 10-foot grid, 2-foot snap changes the underlying snap points to match that. So we're going to change the underlying snap points to 5-foot grid, 5 snap. That allows me 5 points of snap on each point of grid. Very, very useful. Okay, hit OK, boom. Make sure that your cursor snap is activated. Okay, and then you go over here and you click this button called snap. What does that mean? Okay, so if we'll go back to the tree for a second ago, you guys watch me draw that. You know what? I'm going to show you a second trick while we're here. What does that mean? So first I'm going to turn snap off. We're going to go ahead and just quickly copy this bush. There's a command here that says copy. Outline, select do it, and drag it over here. See how nice and easy the bush is moving around with no sort of troubles whatsoever. Smooth, clean curves, right? I hit snap. It doesn't move nice and easy. It doesn't move and it snaps to the appropriate point. So that's what that's there for. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes you don't need it. For floors, you need it. So we're going to go to our floor tool or buildings. This is my opinion. Floor wood straight. So now you notice that my tool is actually snapping into place. So we're going here, we're going to here, and we'll just do an angled floor here just for fun. Okay. So we're looking at something that is not really a map because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a demonstration of the sheet effects. So we've got a couple of basic objects on here. We've got a tree, which will represent. Let's throw a wall on there too. Click on the wall tool. You're going to notice some funky shapes in mine. I do have some custom built wall textures in the Schlape set. You get where you do those on your own another time. But nice simple wall. Good. Concrete wall. Okay. Still don't look like anything. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to click Sheets. And we're going to be on this, basically this and Properties, the rest of this tutorial. Okay. Before I go here, let me tell you, what do you mean Properties? Remember back when I told you that Campaign Cartographer, everything is an object? Every object in Campaign Cartographer is assigned a set of properties. What layer does it live on? What sheet does it live on? What's it supposed to look like? And you can alter the vast majority of those properties after an object has been built with this button here. If you highlight over it, it's copy. It's right above the copy. Change properties. Right click on it. Select entities to change. Just to demo it, what does it do? I'm going to go on the bush here. Okay, we select the push. Right click, hit do it. Brings up a list. This does not tell you where it's assigned right now. That's off of extract properties. Okay, this is where my defaults are right now. Okay, so don't, sometimes you get confused and go, oh crap, everything's on the wrong layer. No, whatever your default settings were, or what is what's going to show in change properties. Where that object was determined by its draw tool. You're only using this to try to change what the program did to begin with. Okay. Just layer tool. So this is on symbols. I'm going to leave it on symbols now, and I'm going to put this on vegetative, where it's supposed to be, just showing you how this works. Okay. Now let's, for a quick and easy thing, what else can I do with it? I'm going to go to here, select it, say I want it to be a different color bush. Okay, again, the Mike Schley SS4 gives you some flexibility with the you know what? I messed that up because I should have used a transparent bush for that. Bad demo, my bad. Okay, so we've got properties. We know where things live on sheets. We know all of that. We're going to hit sheet effects and see what happens here. Okay, so what you're seeing now is the effects in. It looks goofy, okay? But I wanted the gray to be there so you actually saw the contrast of what was happening with each of the edge effects. So you notice now that you've got a fade effect on the terrain, okay? You've got a glow effect on one of the walls. You've got a kind of highlighted glow effect on the floor. You've got a little bit of an outline glow and shadows on the bushes and the trees, okay? That's the way it's supposed to work. So, why does all of this do that? Well, you're going to need to open up your Activate Sheet Effects menu. As you're going up and down it here, you'll see, once you activate it, you'll see all the effects that are assigned to something. Edge Fade Inner. So anything that's on outside has an Edge Fade Inner, which we know as these two pieces here because we drew them with the outdoor drawing tool, okay? So Edge Fade Inner, what does that mean? Well, guess what? You click on it, highlight it, go to Edit, and this tells you what it does. Move it over here a little bit. Maybe you can see a little bit more. Edge Width, that's going to tell you how many units within the map that you're going to see. When I first started playing with it. So we're going to continue along with this, and the floor is up on glow. So it's got a glow effect on it. Let's see what that does. The inside of the shape has a glow effect. The outside of it has nothing. Percentage of view or map units. Again, we're going to use map units. You can adjust the color of the glow within the object. You can adjust the strength of the glow to make it stronger or weaker depending on how much or less you want to override the object. Okay, let's just turn this up to 20% for now, just so you can see a mathematical change in it. So now when you do that, you notice that the object's a lot darker now. You can barely see the inside of it. So according to the parameters, by the parameters of what we adjusted with the edit, we increase the strength of the inside glow. Okay, but let's reverse it a second and take it to outside. Okay, what is that going to do? We're going to hit apply, flip to outside, and now the same glow has been replicated on the outside. Now I like doing that with floors or with ledges because it gives you a sense of depth. It's an easy way to give something three-dimensional shape, three-dimensional view without actually making it a three-dimensional object. So just by going inner to outer, we're able to change that, okay? So we'll go back to that glow effect here. We're going to go to edit, take the strength back down to 15. We're going to go back inside though. Actually, I want to leave it on the outside because I want this to have some depth, some pop, okay? Strength 15, blur radius. I don't like it being that wide though, so we're gonna go to 2. Apply. Okay. So you have a little bit more around the outside of the a little less width on the glow, the blur a little more on the outside. So that's your glow effect. We've seen what the inner effect does, the inner and outer, edge fade inner, edge fade outer. in relation to, once again, we'll just real quick do that again. Take your object here. Our properties are set up there. We don't need to change any of that. Save now, yes. Should have said this earlier. There's a feature called redraw. Sometimes you'll be doing a lot of stuff and you don't see it take shape. Typically, if you scroll in or out, it'll force a refresh, a redraw of everything, replace, draws from the bottom of the layer back to the top of the layer again. Or you can hit this little key up here in the right corner called redraw to refresh it. So we want to mess with our edge fade inner on our outside objects right now. We're going to go to edit. Just for fun, let me disable it so we can see what edge fade outer looks like. Okay. Once you click it off, it turns off. These are the same janky objects that we drew earlier without effects right now. The effects aren't applied. So if you click on add, all of a sudden you have this big old huge list, and I'm still learning a lot about this. I mean, it's got customized position lighting with source dependent shadows and all of that kind of stuff that I'm tinkering with. We're not worried about that right now. Okay, edge fade. Let's just see what we're doing here. 5% edge fade. No, I don't want that one. I want an edge fade outer. Oh, that's it right there. And let's just see what it does as a default. It's probably not going to do much. Okay, so we're going to hit apply. Edge fade regular didn't do anything because it's really not set up to do anything. What it's going to do is hopefully, I believe, reverse the effect from the outside. Whereas inner made the background bleed into the object, this should make the object bleed over into the background. So we're going to take it up to 10% opacity, and we're going to do 10. Oh, that's going to be huge. We'll do 5.5 width. And send it, we need to go map view. That'll help as well. Hit apply. Hit OK, and hit apply. And it doesn't do anything to your background, but when we draw an object around it, let's see what it does in relation to that. Didn't really do anything. Okay, so edge view on the outside, that's right, because we have that gray background, you're really not going to notice the bleed over effect as much. But so a quick demonstration on how you can even add and edit your effects. Let me go ahead and delete that because that shouldn't really be there. We're just going to hit delete. We're going to reactivate our edge fade inner, hit apply. It's going to redraw. And then you've got your fade effect. We've got that. So glow, edge fade. Next is going to be shadow. Shadow is handled by the software. We'll worry about directional and lighting on a different tutorial. Just want to demonstrate how all of it interacts with each other right now. Okay, so we're going to go down to our symbols where our tree is. And that gives you a glow. Yes, you combine effects. That's what gives you that black outline, the defining outline on the tree. And then you've also got wall shadow directional. Just so you know, all of the software, all of the shadows are called wall shadow. Doesn't mean you need a wall there. That's just the title of it. The shadow generates from a particular point directionally. Okay. So we're going to go see it's point light, finalize point light setup. Once you learn how to add your own independent light sources, you can actually assign shadows based on down to an object or making a different sheet. This sheet has shadows that way. This sheet has really complex. We just want to see how to play with them to start with, right? Okay. So we're going to go to edit. This tells you your opacity. How dense is the shadow? We take it up to 70 and hit apply. You'll see those shadows get super, super, super dark. Okay. Length is in units. So the longer that number is, the longer your shadows become. See how this one down here is the one I'm manipulating. It's super dark and super long. You don't want that. So if you go down to 15%, you'll learn as you make your maps that you can actually have a lot of fun and again add depth by making multiple symbol and object layers and giving different lengths of shadows to them. Not everything needs to give a shadow, and I'll show you that in a second. We're going to apply the opacity, take the shadow's thickness back down. This is a bush. It shouldn't have a bigger shadow than a tree, so we're going to go ahead and take it back down to 3 because it affects everything on the sheet. Did I? Oh, I didn't save that, did I? Take it to 3, apply. Okay. Okay, so quick demonstration on shadows. We've got glow effect, blur, shadows. Let's add a shadow to something that doesn't have a shadow. We've got this wall over here. Why does a big old tree and a bush have a shadow, but a wall doesn't have a shadow? Well, we're going to go back into change properties, highlight the wall, go to do it. We're going to take it on its sheet right now. I believe it's on wall. Okay. You know what? Let's not move the object to the wrong layer. Let's add the right effect to the correct object. That'd be a little bit better way to learn. So we know the wall is on walls. Why does it? Oh, glow bevel. So it's got 2 glows and a bevel, but it doesn't have a shadow. Well, let's go ahead and throw a shadow on it. Wall shadow, length 5. We're going to go down to 3 just to now to match what you have with your other. Wait, that didn't add the right one. Sorry. Wall shadow directional. Opacity, 15% to match what you got. Length, I would go with 5. Leave the, make sure you go back to, you always want to make sure you're using map units across all of your things or percentage of view width across all of your things. They do affect your drawings a little bit differently depending on how the math's applied. I'm not mathy enough to really mess with that, but just for now, we'll do it, okay? We're going to hit apply, hit OK, and voila. Now our wall has a shadow. It's a nice faint shadow, but it's a shadow. Okay, so we've got shadow effects, glow effects, edge fade inner, edge fade outer. Now, what happens when, here, you might find yourself, when you start bogging your stuff down, it's easier to draw and move stuff around without effects, but sometimes it's harder to see what you want. So keep that in mind. Okay. So let's do one more really quick thing, and then I'm going to wrap it up so I have a definitive start point for next time. We've added effects to particular sheets. What about, let's overlap 2 pieces of the same terrain and see what it looks like, okay? So it's been assigned to the background sheet, the outside sheet, everything else where everything else is. So we're going to hit activate sheet, right? Oh, but that looks like butt. I mean, it's going to look like butt because of the background. But the edge effect is okay here. The edge effect is okay here, but it's a solid line against the other 2 pieces that are on the same sheet. They're not the same object. They're separate objects, but you can't overlap an effect on an effect when it's on the same sheet. You're like, that's useless. No, it's simple. It's really simple to fix. We know it's on the outside sheet. We know let's duplicate the effect for another sheet. You go to add, and for simplicity's sake, call it outside 2. Okay? All we wanted to do is the same thing as the first sheet. We just want stuff on a different sheet, so it'll overlap. You click on that, you hit copy, you go over to outside 2, you use paste, you hit apply. You now have made a custom sheet. So you go from there and you change properties and assign this. We're going to make sure sheet is clicked there. Make sure you're on your right background just to be clean. Hit OK, redraw, and now you've got the blended edge fade inner, because remember, outside 2 is now drawing above outside 1. So outside 2's edge fade is allowing outside 1 to bleed through. Makes sense? Seems kind of, hopefully that seems simple. Okay, cool. So that's a nice, quick, simple way to understand how the sheets work within your drawings and how they affect. Just to add one more thing, we want some grass here. And it's going to look like butt for a second until we fix it. So we're going to go ahead and go to, where'd my grass go? That's why my grass nice and bright. Terrain grass 4 curved. Turn off snap so I can draw a little quicker. And we're going to overlap 2 layers and 3 objects with the 4th. We're going to draw it. So now it's defaulted to outside 2 because that's what I had last selected. So it blends just perfectly fine with outside 1, but it looks like butt on outside 3. Well, guess what? You can go add outside 3. Copy the effect from the first one. Oops. Nope, I don't want to double it. I want to delete that one. I want to copy this one. Go to 3, hit paste. Okay, doesn't do anything yet because there's nothing attached to it. But then we go to here, hit sheet effect outside because this was kind of a custom thing. Double down on your background floor 1. Hit OK, hit redraw. And now you've got a nice faded look to your terrain. So rather than so the thing you got to learn is with your sheet effects, you can layer all kinds of cool stuff, make all kinds of nice blended terrain, wonderful colors. You just need to pay attention to how the effects work, how you stack your sheets, how you stack your items. Okay. If you want the grass on top, make sure that it's on the 4th draw. And it's not a big deal to redraw a couple more sheets. And if you find you have a couple too many, it doesn't hurt anything. If there's nothing on that sheet, it doesn't even really render. So voila. Okay, guys. I've been kind of blah, blah, blahing here on Twitch for a little bit, running this save, hopefully as a save for my YouTube as well. But thank you for joining me. Look for more stuff coming out on Twitch. Follow me on YouTube at DMGeezerjim, Facebook DMGeezerjim. I have a Patreon set up to help my mapping and D&D content programs build up. You can follow me there. Again, all of my stuff is nice and simple, DMGeezerjim. You can find me on Patreon, find me on Twitch, find me on YouTube, find me on Facebook. Thanks for your time. Hope to see you guys around. Like and follow my stuff. See you soon.